Hey everybody, welcome back to Leosophy. Doing my best Chris Farley impression today. Got three more questions, gonna jump right in. What is the easiest animal to clean? I don't know if you mean washing. If it's washing, it'd be a hairless animal. If you're talking about hunting, rabbits, because you can actually sling their entrails out. Check that out on YouTube. They the algorithm doesn't mess with that for some reason. Oh man. Yeah, rabbits, seriously. You don't even need to make an incision initially to remove the entrails. Let's see. Next, that was a short one. Next question. You have mentioned both Stoicism and Chuang Tzu. Do you think there's a connection between Stoicism and Taoism? Um, there was a lot of influence, vice versa, of Greco-Roman thought and uh, Vedic thought and ancient Chinese thought. It wasn't one sided. A lot of modern historians like to paint it like all these ignorant Europeans were exposed to the cleverness of other civilizations vastly different from their own. But it was a two sided exchange. Do I think that Taoism had an effect on Stoicism? Well, there's a huge overlap. But we don't really see any sort of historical evidence that they influenced each other. I'm more inclined to think, and this is my inner perennialist coming out speaking, I'm more inclined to think that Chuang Tzu and Lao Tzu, assuming Lao Tzu was real, I think he probably was. I'm not one of the skeptics who thinks he didn't exist in any incarnation or another. I do wonder if he single handedly wrote the Tao Te Ching. But anyway, I don't think that there was a direct influence from one culture to another. In this respect, I'm more inclined to think that the Taoist thinkers and the Stoic thinkers, the people who really came up with the basic outlines for what that philosophy should entail, I think they were just sort of plugged into the same source. Because we see that, we see people come up with very remarkably similar ideas in separate locations. So I think that's really what happened, and that is me being superstitious and talking about something that I cannot prove in the slightest. Hope that answers it. Next question, last question. In terms of raw nutrition, what should I grow? If you're in a temperate zone, the best things would be to grow any kind of leafy green veggies, broccoli, cabbage, any of the cruciferous ones, in other words, any kind of greens, kale, for example, uh, collards, mustard greens, things like that. I like to mix Bib lettuce and mustard greens personally. Uh, yeah, kale's really good too. Swiss chard, that's a good one. And then in terms of other non-green things to grow, sweet potatoes, very very nutrient dense, and even everybody talks down about potatoes because of all that misinformation. We covered this in the podcast in our food episode. All this misinformation about oh well, carbs are good for you and proteins are bad. Well, simultaneously, the same people, for whatever reason, argued that potatoes were bad. So it was just everything was just starch related from wheat for the most part. It was a weird period, like the '90s and early 2000s. Like you were expected to eat sugar and carbs and avoid fats and proteins, good fats and proteins, because they would kill you. Well, similarly, potatoes, for whatever reason, were really maligned, but especially if you keep the skins on, very nutrient dense. In fact, one of the reasons why the potato famine was such a hard hit was, I mean, your average person in Ireland in that time, very little of their diet was not milk or potato derived, like a lot of it. But it's a testament to how nutrient dense those two things are because they can keep people alive. So potatoes, sweet potatoes, kale, any kind of cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, etc., um, and any kind of just regular leafy green vegetable. All of those things are good. And the great thing about it is most of them, potatoes and sweet potatoes excluded, they don't take up a lot of space either. You could grow a relatively decent amount with just one of those raised post bed type gardens. So yeah, those are my 2 cents. But if you had to grow one thing it would definitely be cruciferous vegetables because one, they're packed with nutrients, and two, they actually help get rid of phyto and xenoestrogens from your body. So they're a great way to both raise test if you're a guy, normalize estrogen and progesterone if you're a woman, and just good for health in general. So the cruciferous vegetables are flipping great. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, keep asking questions. Bye.